So one of my favorite Mother's Day poems is written by a mother, and it's called "I Wish I Were a Bear." And it goes like this. If you're a bear, you get to hibernate. You could do nothing but sleep for 6 months, and I could get used to that. Another thing, before you hibernate, you're supposed to eat yourself stupid, and that wouldn't bother me either. If you're a mama bear, everyone knows you mean business. You swat anyone who bothers you or your cubs. Your husband expects you to growl when you wake up. He expects you to have hairy legs and excess body fat. He likes it. I wish I were a bear. Yeah, so there you go. That's a good Mother's Day poem. I didn't write it, so yeah. But yeah, a lot of fun and a little bit silly. But yeah, Mother's Day is about honor, really. It's about appreciating and honoring moms and those who invest in our lives in a mothering kind of way. And I think in our society, we've lost a little bit of what it means to learn to truly honor, to bring honor to someone and to a role. And in our culture, maybe in particular, we're good at honoring womanhood, which is a good thing, but maybe not so good at honoring motherhood and just the value of a person really sacrificing and pouring into another person's life. And that's a very big deal. And it's a big deal that God's church be part of restoring that dignity and that honor to motherhood and to investing in other people's lives, whether it's biologically, as mothers, or whether it's just pouring into other people's lives. Scripture is very clear about women in God's church who you're called to invest in other people's lives in that sort of mothering way. And Scripture even uses that, to be a mom to other people. When I think of motherhood, I think of two words in particular. I think of the word in influence and sacrifice. Influence and sacrifice. Charles Swindoll, he said this. He said, "There's no more significant influence in any life than the influence of a mother and her children." Abraham Lincoln said, "All that I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." D.L. Moody said, "All I've ever accomplished in life, I owe to my mother." There's a little boy one time whose mom said to him, "It's God who makes people good." And the little boy looked back at the mom and said, "Yeah, well, I think moms help a lot too," right? And that's just true. Moms have a huge influence, and they make a lot of sacrifices to have that influence in our lives. And just this week I was reading a list of these little sayings. You're a mom when? And so I picked a few of them to show you. This is one. You're a mom when you hide in the bathroom to be alone, right? Any moms relate to that? You're a mom when your child throws up and you catch it. Wow, dads are running the other way, but moms, you're right there for us. You read that that the average 5-year-old asks 437 questions a day, and you feel proud that your kid is above average, right? And you say at least once a day, "I'm not cut out for this job," but you wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And moms, you experience the exhaustion of investing your life into other people's lives, and for that we ought to be thankful and honor the gifting and the calling of motherhood. And and again, I mentioned that includes all kinds of motherhood, not just biological. And I know even for me, as an old guy, not that old, but older guy, I've been in this church just 7 years, and in these 7 years, many of you ladies in our church have been like moms to me and my family. And it is important to honor that and to say thank you for that. And actually, we're going to, as a church, in just a minute, clap and give like a big round of applause to all moms, okay, in our midst and beyond our midst, but just to give honor. And I want to just say in a minute, because two things. One is I want you to do it with some gusto, okay, with some passion. The other thing is, though, is just before we do this, and we're going to kind of change directions and use this motherhood as a launching pad to share with you a message, but motherhood, and I think it's important to acknowledge as we celebrate motherhood that it's also, it's a sweet thing, it's a beautiful thing, but it can also be a painful time for ladies in particular who haven't had kids and their own biological kids, and wrestle with that on a day like Mother's Day and kind of wrestle with the pain that can go with that. For some moms, they've gone through other painful experiences as moms, and then even for us kids, right? Some of us haven't had the relationship with our moms that we wish we would have had. Many kids don't even know who their moms are. And so there's all of that goes into celebrating and giving thanks. But that doesn't change. It's important to acknowledge, but it doesn't change the fact that it's an important day to celebrate and to give thanks and to give honor to moms. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to give a really big Saskatchewan Rough Rider kind of cheer or clap, okay, for moms, and especially those who are moms in our midst. So let's do that right now. Yoo-hoo! Yay! Very cool. Very cool. So here's what we want to do with the time that remains today. I want to talk to you about how to fulfill your second highest calling in life, okay? Your first calling in life is to know and follow Jesus, okay? To know and love Jesus. That's your first calling, be a follower of Christ. Your second highest calling in life is to invest your life in other people, to pour your life out, to make a difference in other people's lives. That is the calling of every single follower of Jesus. Doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your life is like. If you are a follower of Jesus, your first calling, follow him. Know him and love him. Your second highest calling, the most important thing you can do with your life, is to pour your life into other people's lives, to invest your life into other people's lives, which of course motherhood is great for, and we're going to use motherhood as a kind of a springboard for that, because mothers are probably some of the best teachers for us in how we can invest our lives or pour our lives into other people's lives. And so whether you're a mom or not, okay, this is for you. In fact, men, this is for you. You can invest in other people. In fact, if you've got a man close to you, I want you to just turn to them and just say, you make a good mom. Okay, you just turn. Okay. You might say, well, that's a little bit weird. Not sure what to think about that, or if that's a compliment or not. Truth is, you shouldn't be as weirded out by that as you might feel right now. God himself likens himself to a mother many times in Scripture. In fact, I just took a quick perusal. I found 7 of them with just a quick look at Scripture. Let me show you a few of them here. Isaiah 66, as a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you. You shall be comforted. Isaiah 49, can a woman forget her nursing child or show no compassion for the child of her womb? Even these may forget, but I will not forget you, God says, Isaiah 49. And then my favorite one, Hosea 13, like a bear robbed of her cubs, I will attack them and tear them asunder. That's what God will do for your enemies, right? It's like God's like a mama bear. It's awesome. So this is the deal. God likens himself to that. Not only God does, the Apostle Paul does, as he talks about his influence in the lives of those that he's trying to make a difference in. He uses the metaphor of motherhood on occasion, and certainly spiritual parenting. It may be a little more broad there. Fathering and mothering is a big part of what Scripture talks about. 3 John says it this way. He says, I have no greater joy than to hear my children are walking in the truth. It's not only a high calling, it is a place where you will find the greatest joy in your life. By investing in other people's lives, making a difference in other people's lives. Galatians chapter 4, the Apostle Paul talks about his calling to invest in others this way. He says, oh, my dear children, I feel as if I'm going through labor pains for you again, and they will continue until Christ is fully developed in your lives. He likens himself to a mother in labor, longing to see a difference. God touching and changing and impacting other people's lives. And church, this is what you got to understand. There is no higher joy and there's no higher calling other than to follow Jesus yourself than to help other people follow Jesus. And I think in the church, we've made a mistake about this over the last 50 years or so. I think we've sort of thought to ourselves, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about, that spiritual parenting thing or that investing in other people's lives thing, that making a difference, making disciples, that's the calling of every Christ follower, make disciples. But really, what I think we've done in the church is we've said, really, that's for pastors to do. That's for pastors, maybe church leaders. That's their job. Their job is to go make disciples, help us all become really good disciples. And if the pastors do their job, then we'll all be really good disciples. But what the Bible teaches is that it's the responsibility and role of every follower of Christ to make disciples. Every follower of Christ. And that means that the best thing you can do with your life, okay, while you're going about your life, is to help the people around you form into the image of Christ, become more who they're called to be. When Scripture talks about this, it uses 2 primary metaphors. The first metaphor is a metaphor of farming. And it's really specifically referring to people who are outside of Christ, who don't know Jesus yet. And it uses a metaphor of farming, and it says that those of us who know Christ, it's our responsibility to be an influence towards them. It talks about cultivating the soil of their hearts. It's a good thing, eh? You can't plant seed in soil that's too hard. You got to cultivate the soil of people's hearts. We do that by loving people, caring for people, praying for people, building relationships with people. We don't just go try to stuff seeds all over the place into people, right? We get to know them first so that we cultivate the soil. Then we plant the seed of the gospel. We share with them. You know, a person can't come to Christ without hearing the gospel. And so it's our responsibility to be farmers, right? And to share the gospel. And then, of course, we water that. We pray and we do loving deeds and care for people and so on. And we water that and bring nutrients into that deal. And then ultimately, God does a miracle of taking something that was dead and making it alive. And God does that miracle when a person comes to Christ. And we have a responsibility there. We're spiritual farmers. But you know what the Bible says after a person comes to Christ? The metaphor, the primary metaphor that the Bible uses as we grow in Christ, it's spiritual parenting. That's the metaphor. It says when we first come to Jesus, we're like babies. All of us, doesn't matter what age you are physically, when you first come to Jesus, you're a baby. And you need care and feeding and protection and nourishment, all of those things. And then the Bible says as we grow up in that, we become children in the faith. And as children in the faith, we need care and nurture and discipline and all of those things. And then as we become children, the Bible actually uses the term youth. And it talks about us being youth and where we learn to be strong and do spiritual warfare, fight the enemy. We learn to feed ourselves, take some responsibility for our own spiritual lives. And then the Bible says as we mature in that, we become fully mature or reproducing disciples, right? People who can pour into other people's lives. And again, this is just the emphasis, this is what I want you to get today. It is all of our calling, responsibility. It's the highest calling of our lives apart from following Jesus. To pour into other people's lives, to help them along that journey. So with the time that remains, I just want to share with you how you can do that. How do I become a person who rightly invests in other people's lives? And I want you to just think, before I share with you, I'm going to give you 5 things. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. But before I share those things with you, I want you to think in your own life, who are people that God has called me to be an influence on? If you're married, your spouse is one. Okay, that's a given. Okay, God's called you to help your spouse get closer to Jesus. Okay, if you have kids, that's a given. Okay, your kids are definitely people that you've been called to influence, whether grown or not. God's called you to be an influence. And then I want you to think beyond that. Who are the people in my life? Is there 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people in my life that God has called me to be an influence towards? And if you can't readily think of 1 or 2 or 3, then I want you to begin today praying and say, Lord, show me those who you're going to bring across my path, who I can do these things for. And every single one of us can do these things. So here they are. The first one is this: be a vision caster. Be a vision caster. That is, when you come to people that God has called you to invest your life in, you need to see things in them that they can't see in themselves. Okay? See things in them. See what God has placed in them and call those things out of them. God never meant us to kind of just do self-examination, see all the good things in us and bring those out. God meant us to discover his unique wiring and giftedness in us through being a part of a community of people, through other people seeing those things and pulling those things out of us. In fact, it's actually the very first prayer I pray when I feel that God has brought somebody into my life who I'm supposed to specifically invest in. I say, God, give me eyes to see what you see in this person. God, give me eyes to see what you see. You can pray that for your kids. You can pray that for your spouse. You can certainly pray that for people around you. God, give me your eyes. What do you see? What's the potential? What have you put in this person? And how can I call it out of this person? There's a guy back in 1915 in Texas. His name was Ira Yates, and he ran a corner grocery store. And it was a very, very successful grocery store, but he didn't enjoy it. And there was a cattle rancher nearby who knew that Yates didn't enjoy being a grocer, and this cattle rancher offered him a trade. He said, I'll give you 1,600 acres of land that you can ranch on in trade for your store. And Yates was really excited about it, but person after person warned Yates. They said, don't do it. He's giving you the worst land imaginable. Nothing grows there. It's, cattle couldn't even go on that land. It's terrible land. The taxes on it aren't even worth the land. You'll be in debt up to your eyeballs. But Yates just couldn't wait. He just longed so much to be a rancher, didn't want to do this grocer business anymore, and he made the trade. 10 years, him and his wife worked this land and tried to make a living off this land. But what people told him was absolutely true. It was worthless land. I mean, nothing worked well for them. They tried hard. They eked out a living. They found themselves further and further and further in debt. 10 years into this journey of being a cattle rancher, Yates pleaded with an oil company and said, would you come and just try one more time to see if there's oil on any of my ranch? You can see where this is going, right? This oil company came in and they drilled 4 more wells. Every other well had been dry. They drilled 4 more wells. One of them turned out to be what they call a gusher, just like you've seen in the old movies where the oil just shoots out thousands of barrels a day. In fact, in 1 year, they brought in 41 million barrels of oil on this ranch. In 1 year, that ranch quite quickly reached its billionth barrel of oil. And as you can imagine, Yates became a millionaire pretty much overnight. Now, fun story, kind of interesting. What's the point? The point is this: God has placed treasure in every human being. He's placed potential. He's placed great things in all of us that he wants to mine and to bring out of us. And he uses each other to do that. And we have to pray, God, give me eyes to see. Help me see what's in that person, what I can call out of that person. Jesus, when he called his disciples, what did he say? Follow me, I will make you fishers of men. I'll help you become something you're not today. The Apostle Paul was so good at this. The book of Romans is all this exhortation, all this teaching. He's telling them all these things. And at the end of Romans, he does this kind of relational thing with the Roman church. And here's a verse that he writes, always blown me away, this verse. He says, I myself am convinced, my brothers and sisters, that you yourselves are full of goodness. You see what he's doing there? Saying, I see stuff in you guys. I believe in you guys. I just taught you all this stuff. But look what he says next. Filled with knowledge and competent to instruct one another. In other words, you can do this. You can do this. You don't need me here all the time to babysit you. You guys can pull this off. You got this in you. God has put this in you. So that's the first thing. Be a vision caster. See what God has placed in people and call that out of people. We all need people in our lives who do this, don't we? And we need people who can see the good things in us. The second thing is to be a soul sharpener. Okay, a soul sharpener. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now here's the challenge that I want to give you in this one. For a lot of us, the area of our souls, that is the area of our spiritual lives, the area of that our kind of inner life, we live with that part of our lives much in isolation. Especially, again, in our culture, it's sort of like, no, my spiritual life is my thing. It's a private part of my life. Don't ask me about that. You can ask me about every other part of my life, but leave me alone when it comes to my own walk with God, my own spiritual life. Guys, that is terrible theology, okay? It's Canadian practice. It's terrible theology. It's not how God meant us to live our lives in Christ. Here's how Larry Crabb says it. The core battle in everyone's life is to relate well to God, to worship him, enjoy him, experience his presence, hear his voice, trust him in everything, always call him good, obey his every command, even the hard ones, and hope in him when he seems to disappear. That everybody's called to do that. But look what he says next. That's the battle the community of God is called to enter in each other's lives. In other words, we need to go there, to that place with each other. We need to sit down with each other and ask them hard questions, spiritual questions. One of the things that really impacted me years ago was hearing about a gal named Susanna Wesley, John Wesley's mom. She had a load of children. I'm not sure how many, 12 or 17 kids or some crazy number like that. And as they describe how she raised her kids, they say that once a week she spent time individually with each one of them. And then the description of what she did with them was what blew me away. It said, and she would, in that one-on-one meeting, she would inquire into the state of their souls. Isn't that a great statement? Imagine somebody sitting down and I'd like to inquire into the state of your soul. Whoa, right? You think, well, you know what? Raising our kids, this has been one of my deals, and my kids know this. I take them out on daddy dates, they're called. I don't do it every week, but every month or every couple of months. And they know sometime on our time together, on our one-on-one time together, I'm going to ask them, how you doing with God? How you doing? What's God teaching you? What's going on in your world with God? I'll tell you, I remember when I was about 20 years old, my older brother coming to me one time. We'd kind of met up at a family reunion or family get-together. My older brother comes to me and he just says, what's God teaching you lately? I was like, don't ask me that. Leave me alone. You know, you want to go there? You want to go into my soul? You want to talk to me about what? I'll tell you, it was one of the most challenging little moments of my life. And since then, I've asked hundreds of people that. Just what's God teaching? See, we have to have the courage, if we're really going to invest our lives into other people's lives, whether it's our spouse, our kids, our friends, whoever, we have to be willing to go to this place. Ask people about their souls. Ask people about their spiritual lives. Ask people how things are. What's their current challenges? What are they going through? There's a Spanish proverb that says, an ounce of mother is worth a ton of priest. Isn't that awesome? An ounce of mother is worth a ton of priest. But the truth of the matter is, you don't have to be a mother or a priest to do this for people, to talk to people about their souls. And God's church is meant to be the kind of place where people will challenge one another, where people will ask each other deeper questions than just on the surface. My wife is an expert at this. I always watch her in awe. You know, it's really all about asking the right questions, right? And I can't teach it. I just have to have her come and teach it. But, you ask surface questions first, and then as people answer those questions, then you ask deeper questions, right? How do you feel about that? I hate that one. I don't know how I feel. I'm answering your question, It's awesome. But you ask them a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. And I'll tell you, you can become good at helping people examine their own walk, their own spiritual life. So, be a vision caster, be a soul sharpener. The third one is be a life modeler. Okay, be a life modeler. In other words, we have to really live it ourselves if we're going to impart it into anybody else. Just last week, we had our church staff meeting. We sit around and staff. And for the devotional, this is what I said to our staff. I just said this. I said, the most important thing we can do around here as staff of our church, take care of our own walk with God. Take care of our own walk with God. Why? Because if we're not modeling it, if we're not living it, if we're not keeping it fresh ourselves, there's an argument one time, a group of guys were having an argument about which version of the Bible was best. One of them's like, the NIV, it's the easiest to read. And another one's like, no, I like the most modern one, the ESV or whatever. They all have different, one of them's like, I like the old King James. And they're going back and forth. Finally, one guy pipes up and he just says, the best version of the Bible? It's the one my mother lived. Lived. Right? That's the best version. It's the version that gets applied, that gets lived out. Philippians 4:9 says, the things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. And in 1 Corinthians 11, follow my example. Those are the most powerful two words an influencer can say to somebody else. Follow me as I follow the example of Christ. It's a challenge. It's a calling of each one of us. And the reality is we have a huge influence on the people around us, whether we realize it or not. And church, this is so important for you to get. Listen to this, okay? You are influencing all day, every day. Every person you get around. Human beings are like sponges. We soak up what's around us. And so much of the time, we're not aware of it. But what we get around, we become like. And so we're influencing all the people we're around all the time, whether we know it or not. And that's why it's so important to be working on us. That's why it's so important. I plead with you. Work on your own junk. Work on your own hurts and pains and those kind of things. Why? Because those things show up in our world. And I'll tell you, sometimes you think, oh, I better work on that because, I should really change in that area because, it is a fault in my life and my life would be better if I got rid of it. Not only would your life be better, the life of every person around you would be better. All of us are carrying wounds in our lives why are they there? They're there because somebody else didn't deal with their junk, right? Didn't bring their junk to God, get it healed up, dealt with. And we can be the ones generationally to break the curse, right? To say, that ends with my generation, I'm going to get that dealt with, get that healed up. Man, it's a powerful thing to realize how much influence you have. I love the story of a couple that they were going to just fill up their vehicle with gas. And as they got to the gas station, one of the gas station attendants knew the husband's wife quite well, and so she ran off, and she's visiting away with him as he's filling the car with gas, and she's waving her arms and having fun visiting. She jumps back in the car, they drive away, and the husband says to his wife, who was that? Who was that guy? And she says, oh, that was one of my old boyfriends from high school. And he's like, So they're driving along, but finally feels a little better about himself, and he says, he's like a Fortune 500 CEO, kind of a bigwig, and so he says to her, he says, I bet you I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, man, are you ever glad you married me? Because you get to be married to sort of a bigwig, and you don't have to be married to that gas station attendant. She says, no, actually, I was kind of thinking, you're lucky I married you. Because if I would have married that guy, he'd be a Fortune 500 CEO, and you'd have been the gas station attendant, sitting there, right? Good answer, right? Good answer. The truth is, we influence the people we're around, right? And we need to realize it. Be a vision caster, a soul sharpener, a life modeler. The fourth one, be a heart healer. Be a heart healer. We already saw this in Isaiah 66. God comforts us like a mother comforts her kids. And again, we might not be as good at this as a society as we should be, but we need to learn to come alongside people that we care about, people that we're called into to invest into their lives, and we need to learn how to enter into their journey, their pain, their story with them. And church, all of us have pain. All of us have a story. And all of us will find healing as people come and enter into that with us. It's just reality. It's how God's wired us. It's what God has called us to be and do for each other. And, sometimes you hear of somebody you care about who's hurting, and you think, should I call? Should I say something? And the answer always, church, the answer is yes. Yes. Step into other people's world. Now, you don't always have the right words. You don't even always have to say anything. You just say, I care, thinking of you. But we're called to enter each other's worlds and to walk alongside one another. And again, all of us have it. All of us need people to walk alongside us with it. And again, moms, you're such a great example of this for us. When I remember when our kids were little, sometimes they'd, as toddlers, be running around and get hurt in the living room or whatever, and sometimes they'd hit at the corner of a table or something, bang their elbow or whack their head, and they'd start crying. When a toddler, it's like they, right? And they'd start crying, and if I was in the living room, I'd reach out my arms like this, it's okay, and they'd come running towards me, and then I'd be ready for this embrace, and they'd run right past me. Mommy! Man, sometimes I do a little football move and try to catch them, right? And they'd be like, yeah, Mommy! What? But that's the deal. And moms, we're thankful you're good heart healers. But we can all do that for each other and be that for each other. Let me just read you one story about a guy who goes through some tough things. As a high school student who wasn't feeling well, and after a few doctor's visits, the doctor delivered devastating news. I'm sorry, son, but you have cancer. That's the bad news. The good news is it's operable. Your long-term prognosis is excellent. You'll need surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. The process will make you lose all your hair. The young man checked out of school, went through surgery, and completed 6 weeks of chemotherapy. All of his hair was gone the day he went to the doctor to get a clean bill of health. The doctor cleared him to start back to school the very next day. The whole way home, the teen was quiet. His mom said, honey, you ought to be excited about this. You get to go back to school and see your friends. Mom, I'm bald, he said. They'll make fun of me. What if we get a toupee, she says. Mom, that would make it worse. They'll snatch it off my head and throw it around. What about a hat? Mom. And he just left it silent. It's not hard to picture his dejection. He got more depressed the further they drove from the doctors, because the next day he would have to wake up, and for the first time, his worst fears were coming true. He was a 15-year-old walking into a high school campus bald, and he knew he'd be made fun of. I wonder if I should just take the rest of the year off and have them send me my homework, he said. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see my friends. I don't want to spend the rest of the year embarrassed. The mom pulled into the driveway, and they walked together into the dark house. She turned on the light, and 70 people screamed, surprise. 70 of his friends from school were in his living room, and every guy had shaved his head. Every guy had shaved his head, yeah. Now, here's a question I have when you read that story. What's so powerful to us about that story? Somebody else, in this case, a whole bunch of somebody else's, came and entered into that guy's pain with him. And that's powerful. And we need it. And we can be that for each other. Okay? So, and which really earns us the right to be the last one, and that is be a tail kicker, okay? Sometimes we need people to come into our lives and just kick us in the butt and help us move forward in our lives. Proverbs chapter 27 says it this way: words from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses, okay? And again, sometimes we think, oh no, a true friend would never judge me. A true friend would never tell me what I need to fix or what they're concerned about for my life. The opposite is true, church. Your best friends, your best people who love you are the people who are going to confront you. They're the people who are going to tell you when they have concerns. Now, they should do it graciously. They should do it humbly, okay? Not arrogantly presiding over us. But we must learn to do this if we really love each other, if we really want to see each other grow. We have to be willing to challenge each other. It was about 2 weeks ago. I was in a group of people when a gentleman came home, and he had come home from being with a trainer. You know, he'd gotten a personal trainer, and it was his first time. And so we're all asking him, how was it? What was it like to be with your personal trainer for the first time? And he looked back at us and he said, it was okay, but he wasn't nearly hard enough on me. I'm going to have to talk to him. He wasn't nearly, nobody gets a personal trainer so they can coddle you, right? You need people in your life who will challenge you. And we all need this. We need people in our lives who aren't just going to coddle us. We need that at times, right? Care and healing and so on. But we need people who will kick us in the butt and say, let's go forward. There's things we can change. There's improvements we can make. And again, we are not always fully self-aware. We're not meant to just deal with this stuff. We need vision casters in our lives who see good things in us that they call out of us. We need people to help us see the blind spots in our lives too, right? And call us on those. Say, hey, this is something that needs to get helped or better in our lives. So here's the challenge I want to just leave with you today. It's just invest your life in people. Ask God, how can I fulfill the second highest calling of my life? Highest calling, follow Jesus myself. But God, how can I fulfill the second highest calling of my life? And I think biblically you can do it by being like a mom, right? Being an investor and a sacrificer of your life to others. Call things out of them when you see good things in them. Be a vision caster. Be a soul sharpener. Be willing to go to spiritual places with them and challenge them about their spiritual lives. Be a life modeler. Make sure you're growing yourself, staying fresh yourself. Realize how much influence just who you are. We teach what we know, but we reproduce what we are. Right? We teach what we know, but we reproduce what we are. So be a life modeler. Be a heart healer, right? Walk with people in their story, in their journey, in their pain, and be a tail kicker. Be willing to confront and challenge. And I'll tell you, you will find such joy. Just like John said, that I have no greater joy than to hear my children walking in the truth. When you see that your life has influenced another life positively, man, there's so much joy in that. I remember I became a grandpa. I first became a grandpa when I was 26 years old. Huh? Pretty cool, huh? You know how it happened? This one Sunday, I'll never forget this Sunday. I'm in church, and I had been pouring my life into a guy named Richard Mann. He's now a lawyer in Texas, Richard Mann. But I've been pouring into Richard and spending time with him and praying for him and encouraging him. And tail kicking him and walking with him through all of the different stuff in his life, and it had been a really neat journey. And just a few weeks before, Richard had started doing this for John. And he started pouring into John's life and spending time with John and encouraging John and praying for John and challenging John. And they were working through stuff together. And that Sunday, this one Sunday, I was 26 or 27 years old, John walks up to me and he says, "Hey, Gramps." Oh, I'm going, "Hey, John, what's the deal?" He's like, "Well, I figure you're my grandpa because you invested into Richard's life and now he's investing in mine." I was like, all right, I can handle that. And to this day, when I see John, is it, "Hey, Gramps, hey, Gramps." I tell you, there's so much joy, you guys, in just going, I get to invest, I get to be an influence in my spouse's life, in my friend's life, in my kid's life, in somebody else's life. And so just like I said to start this message, pray and say, "God, who is it? Who is it that I can fulfill my second highest calling with? Who is it that I can be an influence towards Christ in their lives?" And God will use you. God will use you. It doesn't matter your age. He'll use you to spiritually parent people, be an influence on people for good. So